Hey guys, welcome to your final episode this week of War Hero to Superhero podcast, helping military veterans and first responders transform their lives from the bedroom to the boardroom. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Faust, and your fellow War Hero to Superhero. Quick announcement before we go into the day in this final episode of this week is if you guys are watching this on a regularly, we did this a Monday through Friday schedule, 5 days a week. We have checked the algorithms and saw that Mondays and Fridays, we usually get no attention or very little. And we understand you're starting the beginning of the week and you're ending the week and you're trying to get connected with your family. So we, as of the beginning of July, will go over and phase to a Tuesday through Thursday schedule, except for the last week of the month because we're interviewing our War Hero to Superheroes. But that's what we'll be phasing into. Unless we get 300 views on these episodes on Monday and Friday with 15 comments, then we will reconsider doing this 5 days a week. But our schedule is changing as of the first week of July, going to a Tuesday through Thursday schedule. So if this serves you and you want this more, go over and share this like crazy so we can get the views. If you guys are like, whoo, I need to go over and need only Tuesday through Thursday because you give enough content like crazy, then go over and just watch it casually on your own, and that's fine. We're here to serve you guys. It's not about us, it's about you. So the more views, the more we give you. The less views, obviously, we cut back because, hey, we want to serve you in the best capacity possible. So let's go jump in. Thanks for the love. Today's topic, and we're always in a different theme each week. If you've never joined us before, we are in the boardroom, virtually speaking, and we are learning how to reconnect in the boardroom as my shirt's trying to reconnect pixelated wise. So we're going to be talking about, have you ever ghosted? So when the economy was strong, businesses experienced 20 to 50% of ghosting. And if you're not familiar with the term, which I just recently became familiar with, is ghosting is when you stop contact or communication with someone or something. So if you were dating somebody and you wanted to ghost them, you just stop phone calling, stop emailing, they start contacting you, and you would just go like radio dead silence. Same thing happened at work. People will go over and get a job and then go leave the job and not say anything, or go over and get the interview and not go to the interview, or go through the interview and get to the hiring process and never come into process with HR. Or they just got frustrated and they just went over, didn't even give their 2 weeks, and it's like next thing you know, boop, or they just walked straight out. So this was pretty common until COVID kicked in. But overall, it's not common courtesy to go over and to ghost. So because what happens is, people forget, is businesses do talk. And social media is a great resource to see your past and predict your future opportunities. So we want to help you not to go over and ghost, but able to make wise decisions on going over when to leave and when not to leave a company or a business or a venture or whatever that is in the boardroom scenario. So we want to talk about, so when is a good way and time to leave? So we want to give you a couple tips. You can take what you want, add what you want, take away what you want, but we want to at least give you a framework on how to properly ghost, which you're really not ghosting. You're just fading away in a proper way so you can go over and thrive. Wow, I'm really ghosting on the pixelization today. Let's rotate a bit. It's funny about that. Let's go check the comments before we go in. All right, Richard goes over and says, #live. Thanks for watching, Richard. If you can go over and do a share, that would be fantastic. We'd love for you guys to go over and share. All right, so where were we at? Tip number 1, and this one's probably going to be the hardest one, especially if you're more of a nurturer style person and you don't want to ruffle feathers, is actually talk to your boss. The funny thing is that we talk to our boss on a regular basis until we get frustrated or something goes wrong or there's a communication debacle, or maybe we just want to avoid because maybe he or she is very hostile, everything else. We still highly recommend go talk to your boss. If you don't go feel comfortable, talk to somebody that's maybe above that person to maybe go over and deal with the issues. They could be, you could have found out that your frustration was you don't get enough family time, and you might find out that your boss says, you could have teleworked. What? That's the thing I found out for myself, is that when I got this job, is that, I didn't know the power of telework. I literally could decide each and every day that says, hey, it's not easy for me to come in today. I got a kid's appointment. So I go over and I telework at home later in the evening or earlier in the morning, or make up the hours on the weekend. And I was told that as long as I do 80 hours in 2 weeks, boom, it's set and done. We don't care how you do it as long as it's approved. You can use your admin leave, you can use your personal leave, you can use your, if you won any leave on an award and so on and so forth. If you want to go over and not be paid, you can even do that as long as you have your hours accounted for and you have 80 billable or not billable hours. So that will be fruitful before you go over and quote unquote ghost your job, is to go over and talk to your boss. Now, the most important person outside your boss, which I would talk to this person first compared to your boss, is talk to your partner. So if you have a significant other, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever person that is significant in your life that shares your life goes over, you should be talking to that person because you're sharing life with them. And if you go ghost the job, averagely, you're not going to go over and have something instantaneously go over and happen. We'll talk about what the average time frame is, but talking to your partner is key. You'll cause a lot less stress than going over and doing that. There's a great episode on the Big Bang Theory when Leonard was like, yeah, I'm thinking about quitting. Say what? He was talking to his friends and he was talking to everybody else, but he didn't talk to his partner. And when he went over and brought it to Penny, they're like, what? She's like, I want you to be happy. I want to leave. Whoa, wait a minute. I really didn't go over and mean that per se. So have those conversations. Your partner should go over and know when you're leaving. Your boss shouldn't get the first notification. Actually, your partner should be. But definitely you want to talk to both those people. Going from there, you want to look at your financial portfolio. 78% of Americans, if they get hit with a $400 bill, typically don't go over and have it. Unfortunately, we live paycheck to paycheck. So you want to look at your financial portfolio and ask those tough questions. What if my income went away? What if I got a job real quick and only earned half? What things do I need compared to what things I want? What bills that I'm in? Maybe it's wise to knock out some bills. Maybe if you have credit cards and debt, student loans, things of that nature, that you utilize this job, and I say job, just over broke, to go over to just get the momentum going, and maybe even have to grab a side hustle to go over and do that to get that financial portfolio rolling. A lot of times when two people are working as a household, realistically, you're paying a lot more money for that second person to go over and work. And you might find out that you might be able to leave the job and figure out like, man, I got all these want bills. If you ever go on the truebill.com, you can go over and scan all your bills that are quote unquote subscriptions that you might have forgotten and realize like, man, I have $300-400 in subscriptions. Wow, I didn't know this money was being gone over here. I didn't know I was spending this. Oh, I only got 3 months to go over and left for this particular payment, which is $400 a month. Man, what do I really need to have a car? Those types of things. So talk about your financial portfolio and look over it and find out how much do you really need. Like when I went over and me and my wife were both working at the time, she went over and she was making $23 an hour. I was making about, I don't know, 15 or whatever. It was an IT job. And the thing is that the hours would fluctuate. They want me there for like, some days it was 3 hours a day. Some days it was 12 hours a day. Some days they would cancel jobs. And I almost died twice during those 2 days because of major accidents and whatnot. And I had the veer and everything else. And I'm like, this ain't worth it. We calculated how much she was making and everything else. I'm like, all right, can I live on my reserve pay, my disability pay, and then what she was doing? And I was able to do that for about 3 to 6 months in that particular regard. So we looked at the financial portfolio and did that. And then there was other seasons that when my wife wanted to work, we were like, okay, it's going to cost this much more to go over when you're primarily taking care of the kids. And at that time, her skill sets were lower than mine. Now we're pretty much quasi equal depending on which career path we go. And she stayed at home for the majority. Right now, she's staying home and doing at home work and going over and thinking about starting a podcast, which takes a bit, but we've now gotten to the point that we can still be a one income family primarily. So look over your financial portfolio. Because what happens is that if you go over and ghost the job, it takes 6 to 9 months to find a good job. And I am proof of that. When I got out of active duty, I looked at I applied for 2 to 20 jobs a day. I looked at least 1,000 jobs plus a day. In a matter of a 7-year period up until early last year, um, I went over and looked at roughly 2 million jobs. I applied for thousands. I interviewed for hundreds. And the thing is that to get a good quality job that's worthwhile fiscally, that you like and you actually thrive at, it takes 6 to 9 months. And now with COVID, you go over and yes, there's still opportunities to go over and get hired, but there's delays in that regard. The other thing is that to factor in is how much savings do you have? You know, like you got to know how much you spend a month and then also how much savings you have a month. If you have 6 to 9 months of income and you're trying to grow at the next level, or you have other money coming in, let's say educational money or other resources, like, hey, you find out you go to school on a GI Bill and you're like, hey, I'm bringing in 1,500 a month. And then I get, the FAFSA, which is another 6 grand, and that I can put that in and maybe last another couple more months. And if you can go figure it out, you got to that point, then yeah, you could technically, quote unquote, ghost, as we say it, the job. You're not actually ghosting them, but you're going over and you can leave the job with ease a lot better because if you have the savings. So how much savings do you have? Something to consider. Also, what expenses can you cut? Again, we talked about earlier, Truebill is a great opportunity to go over and see if there's, subscriptions. I realized just recently that YouTube TV was taking out, and I realized myself, I'm like, am I utilizing YouTube TV? I'm utilizing YouTube a lot, but YouTube TV, I'm like, how much are we utilizing in a 30-day month or what a month? And I got that expense. So that's $50. I can put that $50 to other family needs. I can go over and put that towards business opportunities. I can put that going over and cutting down debt, which that's key too. How much debt could you cut before you go over and leave? We didn't put that in the comments, in the banners, but that's an idea to think about. Because when you start going back applying again, so you ghost the job today and you say, you try to give the professional 2 weeks, or if it's a really toxic situation, we only recommend in toxic situations to go over and quit. If you're having, like I had situations, I had my coworker threaten my life. There was a shooting at my work, those types of things. Yeah. You don't stay and say, I need to give my 2 weeks. But, or if it's like, hey, they're going to put you in a deadly situation. They're like, hey, we're going to put you in contact back with 1,000 people a day and COVID's rampant in your city or your state, it might be worthwhile to say, hey, my safety's on line. My wife had that. The environment was toxic at her work and it just wasn't safe. And he was already cutting funds already. And it was like, okay, it's not fruitful. But when you get back to the applying mode, you're 1 out of 2,000 applicants on average per job posting. It doesn't matter if it's a Craigslist job, which some of them are legit. If you need to go over and learn on which one's legit or not, get back with us. I can go over and teach you some tips, and tricks. Woo! It's Friday. All right. So, but yeah, you are 1 out of 2,000 applicants per job posting. And nowadays on a lot of these job sites, they'll tell you how many applicants went over and applied. That's demoralizing to me. So I'm like, I don't even look at that. Like 700 people applied. I'm like, no, that's not me. So, because if you quit and you ghost, expect no unemployment. So that big amount of money that the unemployment came in, you're not going to probably get it. Some states maybe allow you to quit depending on the circumstance. But more than likely, you're like, well, I ghosted. What'd you do? I walked out. And then the employer calls back like, yeah, he just walked out or she just walked out one day. You don't get unemployment. So I'd highly recommend not to go over and ghost. It might look cool. It might feel cool. It's trending and everything else. But you want the trend for legacy. You don't want to go trend just for a moment. Because there's something else you can go over and do in between. Why not job hunt first? When you're applying for those jobs and you have a job, it's a lot easier to go over and do it. A lot of jobs are at computer-based jobs, and especially like say you're still teleworking or whatnot, you can go over and take a morale break. Most companies allow you to take a morale break, and if you need to, go over and job hunt on your phone. If you can't go job hunt on the government or corporate computer, you go over and do that. And especially if you have your resume all set up, Indeed and Monster and Dice and all those other places, you can literally go over and apply for a job in a couple minutes. If your resume matches 70% of the job posting, go over and apply. That was my rule of thumb for all the jobs I went over and applied. Yes, a contextualized resume is always best. The recruiters are going to go over and say that, and they're going to say a targeted resume is going over and best. But I've gotten jobs because my resume matched 70%. So the rule is usually 80%. My rule of thumb was 70%. If the job posting plus my resume and my experience was 70% there, I go apply there. Now, if it said one of those jobs, no job experience, job trainings, and whatnot, they'll take your resume and they're more likely going to handle you. Now you're going to have to prove the worth. And it might be some weird circumstances. Like they wanted me to sell like car washes in a can. I was like, wow, it's a sales opportunity. They did not tell me I'd be going from gas station to gas station, going over and selling car wash in a can. And yes, you can get up to this percentage. And I'm decent at sales, but I was like, the stress of every day. Nope. So why not job hunt for a little bit, go figure it out, and save yourself a little leave time or personal time to go over and go to those interviews. So now, what if you're thinking to yourself, why not start a biz? You're like, what about starting a biz? That might be something that's worthwhile. That might be better. That doesn't take as long. You don't have 6 to 9 months to go get a job because if you start a biz, you employed yourself right there and then. You're like, boom, I'm set. I'm done. No water, man. So what about starting a biz? In that particular realm, I'd ask you to go back up to the questions we talked about, you potentially leaving, and ask the same questions. Well, you don't have to talk to your boss about starting a biz, but you might find out that there might be ways to go and adjust. I had a supervisor at Boeing that basically said like, hey, if you do this for me, I'm going to empower you to the next step. So when I was becoming a professional trainer and speaker with certain businesses, she's like, if you can work my third shift and cover my gaps when people are sick, when you're available, I'll let you keep the job and I will help empower you to the next step. And she kept to her word. She was awesome. She eventually transitioned to become a truck driver with her husband. But while she was there at that point, she was pretty awesome. So now after you go over and ask those same questions, you talk to your boss, you talk to your partner, you've gone over and looked at your budget and everything else. Opportunities to go look at is biz credit and loans. As military veterans and first responders, there is lots of opportunities. If you need connections in those particular realms on biz credit and loans, and you think that is wise for you to go over and do, hey, go direct message me and I'll go over and connect you with the people that I have connections with and see where we can go over and help you. These ain't referral partners in the sense, but these are veteran friends that I go over and have that work in that realm. So and that's the things you got to consider too, is that depending on what type of business you go over and do, you might need business credit or loans. If you're selling manufacturing equipment compared to doing consulting is a lot less cost to get a business up and rolling. But the thing is, it takes a lot more momentum and it's harder to go over and to prove. My friend goes over and works in satellite dishes and Cat5 cable and wiring buildings and stuff like that. That's easy to get a business loan compared to my type of business. So, but there is opportunities to get business credit or loans in that regard. So let's think about this. So if you're starting a biz, it can take 2 to sometimes up to 5 years to go get the business up and rolling. So I want you to think about this if you're going to plan to go over and do this. Let the business overwhelm you before going full time. A lot of times when you start your own business, you can do it as fast or as slow as you want. I know several GS workers that go over and run a business and they're waiting for it to go overflow on them to go and do that. Or they do it part-time until they get to retirement. And then they go from part-time to full-time. So they keep enough clients, they keep enough of attraction, and then they go over and then they maximize it when they retire because now they got another income. So maybe you might be close to that. I mean, in the federal service, you can go over, if you're doing the GS world and you have prior military service, you can buy back your retirement. I'm considering that myself to go over and say, if I do this for 5 full years, and then I buy back 15 years, I got 20, and now I'm receiving $1,000 to $1,200 a month starting the month after I leave. So now I have another $1,000 of passive income with my disability and then other things. And by then I should meet my goals of how much passive income I want. For me, I have a specific goal, and that's going to be helpful too for you guys, is that know when your business overwhelms you. Either fiscally, you're like, I'm making so much that it's not worth it for me to stay, or you go over and then say, hey, it overwhelms you to the point that it's interrupting your work. And if you took the next step over. Now, maybe a business on your own, creating your own idea is a little much for you. So let's go over the 3 different types of businesses that most of us veterans go over and jump into first responders: franchises, direct sales, and your own biz idea. If you go the franchise route, franchises are basically businesses in a box that has a good brand behind it. Subway, Little Caesars, etc. So there's hundreds of those. Again, I have connections if you want to learn about that. One of my guys, I can't remember his name right now, he goes over and all he does is help veterans and military people that are transitioning out to get into the franchise world. So if you're looking to get into that, you can go over and do that. Here's the pros about it. The cons you can look up on your own. I just want to at least give you the pros. Low to high costs. You got to have good to great credit to usually go over and get approved, because you might not have the cash to go pay. Very few people actually have the cash. Like some of them start as low as $10,000. Some of them start up as $250,000. And then you get to follow their model. So if you're used to, like within the military or the first responders, you're used to a certain structure. It helped a lot of veterans do well. It's like, hey, I just want a structure, but I want to do it at my own time. So they give you a great model, but you get the profits after the expenses and the share that they require. So you got to look into those particular things when you're going over and doing that, because sometimes some of them might have a high overhead and some of them might have a low overhead. Food has a high overhead. So you might be only bringing 10 to 15% of what's actually coming in. So now, if you're looking more of the direct sales type of biz, these are individuals selling products or services under a big business brand: Legal Shield, Isogenics, and there's several others that have so many Greek and Latin words that I couldn't pronounce. So I was like, all right, these two are good. And the pros with that, I did a spelling mistake. Low cost to start. They have an established staff to support you. They have training on a regular basis. You can go part-time or full-time opportunities. Lots of revenue earning potential. If you follow their model and you keep rinse, wash, and repeating, and you continue to train, if you actually make it and get past the year mark, most people fail in these direct sales businesses because they don't have the tenacity to keep going. So, and I would highly recommend you to learn bank to go over and increase your sales up to 300%. There is a direct sales model of the bank code, which I go over and train on. I would highly recommend to go over and learn that. And also with these direct sales companies, they have lots of streams of income. They have like, hey, you earn this much income, we give you another stream. If you get people under you, you get a certain stream. If you meet a certain income stream, like in Tupperware, you can get a car or you can get your house payment, these types of things. Mel and Luca, for example, they're a great direct sales company, and you keep that income even after you go. So even if you did Mel and Luca for a year, and let's say you got 100 people under Mel and Luca business, and they're ordering, let's say $200 a month, and you get like 20% of that, you're still going to get that. Those products are disposable things like toilet paper and food and toothpaste. Most people in Mel and Luca, once they start buying, they stick with it. It gets direct shipped to door. It saves them tons of money. They go over and leverage it, and you can go over and have basically passive income. I know a guy that left for like in Mel and Luca, he was in it for about 10 or 15 years. He left for a 3 to 5 year stint because of his family. He was taking care of his family. He still kept 80% of his business. He was still making 6-figure passively while he took that 5-year break. 3 to 5 year break. I can't remember his name right now, but he was in Arizona, and he came back into the business. He's like, I want to get to 7-figure now. He was already at 6, but he was able to leave. So there is passive income opportunities in some direct sales businesses. And plus, the other benefit is you can do it and not leave your job until you're ready. A lot of people can do it on nights, weekends, through Facebook, through friends and text messages, parties at night. Pampered Chef and all those types of things that we used to do before COVID. You can still do them online and whatnot, because that's the great thing with that. When you do more of a franchise, it takes a lot of your time. You got to be prepared. And it's usually biz loans, biz credit, those types of things. Very highly unlikely you're going to be able to manage a franchise. You'd have to have a great partner to go over, either business or a personal partner that's going to be involved, that you're able to manage that. And there's people that do a lot of amazing things. It's just not the normative of going over and doing that. But no matter what you decide, wherever you're at, wherever you're watching this live on Podopolo, today, tomorrow, or 5 years in the future, and COVID is gone, doesn't matter when you watch this, taking time to think it through, getting yourself some sound advice, and having a good plan will help you be successful than to go over and just wing it on your own and ghost and then try to wing it when we get out. We need to go manage ourselves intellectually first, and then use our emotions as a barometer to set ourselves free, compared to emotionally feeling it and intellectually justifying, which then sets the lie. So let me tell you my story, and then we're going to close out for the weekend. I hope you guys have a great weekend. So when I got out of the service, and I was, quote unquote, officially now ghosted, because active duty, I couldn't stay in active duty. They only allowed me to go reserve because of a paper technicality. That's a longer story. But anyway, when I got out of active duty, I tried to go over. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go over and do my business. I went over and lost $4,500 because of an unexpected bill, as we talked about earlier. So I had to pay $900 a month for 5 months. So I took out of my active duty pay. And then I went over and said, I'm going to go run my business, Perspectives and Reflections. I'm going to consult churches and help them with their marriages. I see X, Y, and Z. I had some people go and agree with me, but I had the ministry, Family Life Ministries, tell me like, hey, you don't have 200 families. You don't have $90,000. I don't think it's wise. I didn't take the sound advice. I went over and just chucked it. I didn't take time to think it through. I just went over and said, hey, God called me to go do this. Set and done. So I get down there and I got my severance pay. I got about $19,000, and then I was making about $400 a week on unemployment. So I was meeting the job requirement of looking for jobs, getting unemployment, and then doing that. I thought to myself, I should be successful and should start getting business if I'm doing this every day full time for X amount of time. I went over and tried to go over and do that. I did that from basically May until about October, and money just kept liquidating out of the house. I went over and spent like I was making money as a business owner, and I wasn't being smart and going and putting myself in a different place. I got down to 6 weeks of revenue, and I decided now I need to go apply for jobs. Way too late in the game. I got down to $300 in my checking account, went to a bunch of resources and said, this is what's going on. And basically really didn't get any help. So I got down, I paid the rent, went to these resources in Arkansas, and Resources of the Resource was like, hey, we're the last option. I'm crying in my chair, $300. I'm like, Lord, what's going to happen? And this is a miracle. This is not the normative, that I got a deposit for $700. And I was like, praise God, but why? So it said something with VA, whatever. And I'm like, that sounds like the Veterans Affairs. So I contacted the Veterans Affairs and found out that I was getting disability. And it was God's providence that letter came in the same exact day. So now we're up to like 1,000, 1,100. Okay, it's tolerable. I can pay another bill or two, but we're still, we're still stemming the ship, and everything is collapsing. And about 3 to 5 days later, I started having jobs going over and calling me. And then I was able to get a job. And I went from no job to 15. Then the other job wanted to give me 16. I competed at 17, and I got to 18. And I was making $18 an hour now, being a reservist. And I got my disability, and I got the reserve. And now things are starting to stabilize. But that's not the normative. When we go over and it wasn't even a ghost. I knew for months that they're like, hey, we're going to have you get out of service. But I really couldn't apply for jobs until I get out. And I decided I'm going to go run my biz. If I could have did it over again, I would have took the advice I'm giving you. Take my time to think it through. get sound advice, have a good plan. So being successful, I should have went over and said, okay, my business is not profitable yet. I can go over and find a job that's like nights, weekends, second shift, third shift, and whatever. And I could go over and do that. And I had that, and that job came up afterwards. This job was a week on, a week off, a week on, a week off. And that gave me providence because my girls were getting disability now because of their disability. I was getting disability. I was earning 18 an hour. I only had to work 1 week and then off the next week. Still met the hours that I needed weekly. I got about 168 hours every 2 weeks. So I got about well, the way it worked is how it landed for overtime. So I got between 10 to 20 hours of overtime every single week that I worked, but then I had the whole next week off. Again, that's not the normative, but I share that with you to go over and say, get some wise counsel before you consider ghosting and go over and think that through. That's in anything. What are the consequences are you willing to go over and absorb? That's a war hero to superhero. At least, and I'm not encouraging this, but if you go over and ghost, be a good war hero, superhero, and take the consequences that if you're going to decide to ghost. And even if you make these wise decisions, is saying, hey, I'm going to take responsibility. That's a true transformation from war hero to superhero. So thank you guys for going over and joining. I went a little long. So funny, on Friday when nobody watches, I went long. And it doesn't matter. If one person hears this and they're transformed, then it's a good message to go over and give. Our superhero challenge for today, either if you're watching this in podcast form or on the live or on YouTube, is tell us your favorite quitting story, because everybody has their quitting story, right? Everybody's quit one job, or maybe you quit something. Tell us your favorite quitting story. Prefer to you to tie it into a job and share it in the comments. We'd love to hear it. This is always a dialogue, never a monologue. And as always, if you're struggling in the boardroom and you're like, I'm thinking about ghosting, I don't know what to go over and do, I need a good plan, or in any other of the rooms in the living room or the bedroom, 20 minutes free to every military, veteran, and first responder that contacts us. And if you want to take your superhero transformation to the next level, in the ticker on the bottom, go hit our Patreon at patreon.com/thrive-not-survive. As low as $5 a month, you can go change your marriage and be a superhero. So we encourage you to go over and check that out. And again, we're always here for you. So as you see us in the social media, go over and hit the comments, go over and connect with us. You have our phone number on our pages and whatnot. We'd love to go and connect. So have a great weekend. And again, if you guys love to hear this on Fridays and Mondays, 300 views and 15 comments in roughly 72 hours on this. So that's what we need to go over, and we know to go over and serve you. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.